Good evening. Welcome to Liberty and Justice for All. Tonight, as you can see by the title of the show, is the American, or let's say the United States media, or we can call it the major media, or we can call it the dominant media. Is it controlled? Well, we're going to explore that tonight. The media being controlled. Yeah, right. Of course it is. Dana Allen is our guest tonight. Juanita Cox, of course, you know her. She's going to help me out, as I need lots of that. Anyway, Dana, welcome to the show, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Silicon Valley businessman. Started a software company called Sequoia Data. Actually was the first e-commerce company. Started that in 1987. The company became successful, and I merged with another company to go public and actually became the CEO of that. And then I got into news media.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And I don't mean to interrupt you. Sequoia Media, what's the connection between that and Sequoia voting machines?
Absolutely zero.
Good, good, okay.
It's e-commerce.
Okay, okay. Proceed, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then I got in the news media actually at the same time that I was in the high-tech business, because I was very concerned about the quality of the news media. So I co-founded Newsmax.com in 1998. It became successful amazingly fast, and we were having over 1 million web viewers per month. And it was just amazing. And the reason it's so successful so quickly is because there's such a thirst for real news. Now, there is one part of the United States news media that's not censored, and that is talk radio. I've been able to talk about any subject on talk radio. I know quite a few of the hosts, and that is uncensored. But television news is very censored. And so because of that lack of uncensored news, people flocked to our website and became world famous in a matter of about 6 months.
Fabulous. Do you think that the media might be more powerful than even maybe the government? Is it getting really powerful?
Yeah, actually, because they very often determine who the government is. In the last election, I think they chose Obama very early on in the primaries. They wanted him to win the primaries, and then they wanted him to win the general election. And so they biased the reporting and hid things that shouldn't have been hid, and were very critical of his opponents in both the general and the primary election.
Now, do you feel that they just happened to like Obama, or they were instructed to make the American public like Obama?
That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that. It could be either one. I know they do like him. There's a tendency. There's this reputation for the news media to be very liberal, and when they do surveys in journalism schools, it is true. They're about 90% on the left, liberal side. But some things that go on, it raises a question that there is some direct control. I don't know how that's done, but I think that's a legitimate question.
Okay.
So you think that maybe, is there enough checks and balances, or do you think no?
There's none. That is the problem. The U.S. government, when it was originally set up, the founding fathers very wisely came up with all these checks and balances. And at that point, the news media wasn't very powerful because there wasn't television, there wasn't radio, and for the newspapers, a lot of people were illiterate. So the power was much less, and so they built in these safeguards for the government, and then they had the news media be a watchdog for the people, and that was the original role. And that role has been forgotten, actually, to a large extent. And now the news media often sees their roles to push their particular viewpoints, get the policies and the politicians they want to get into office, and not look after being a watchdog on the government.
Such as LBJ. You had a story about LBJ?
Yeah. He. I know this because I used to be peripherally in the auto collector business, and in his limousines he had 3 television sets. And so at 6 o'clock he could watch ABC, CBS, and NBC all at the same time because he knew where the power was. And in this one survey, I don't know if they're able to show the clip of it or not, 43% of the American people said the most powerful institution in America was the news media, and 22% said the government. So by a 2-to-1 margin, the American people feel the media is more powerful, and I agree with the American people. We discussed how it appeared in the last election that the media is controlled. The American media revolution has created a movie titled The Elite Media Cartel to explore explanations of how the media is controlled.
One day, I had had enough, and I decided to write an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And he said, the quote that you just read, you know, come on, all the networks tilt left. And then, as I walked out, and this is important because I sure could have used his help in 1996 when I wrote the op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about liberal bias, he said, and if you ever repeat this, I'll deny it. I am not saying that these guys come in the morning, they go into a dark room, they give the secret salute, and then they say, how are we going to screw conservatives today? It never, ever, ever happens that way. What happens is even worse, because what I just described is so bad that it would be fixable. What happens is this liberal bias is a cultural bias. The media elites live in Manhattan and live in Washington. They hang out with people. They go to dinner parties and cocktail parties with people who basically share the same views. And these views basically are liberal views. So they think that there are conservative views on the one hand, but middle-of-the-road views on the other. They really don't have a lot of time for people who live between Manhattan and Malibu. But they do have time for their friends in Manhattan and Washington and Malibu.
For years, the three had a stranglehold over all the information out of television that Americans saw. How pervasive, in your opinion, and how bad for the country was that stranglehold?
Well, the way I compare it to the Berlin Wall. What I can't figure out is how the money guys, the people who are running the conglomerates of which the news divisions are a part, how they let the news guys continue to squander this valuable asset.
You cite some polls. 20 years ago, 75% of the TV viewing population watched the news at the major networks.
Right.
ABC, CBS. 20 years later, by 2001, that had sunk all the way to 43%.
This is the big one.
Well, now we'll know. No more guessing and no more rumors.
Yep, after the ceremony.
Now we will look at some clips from the Elite Media Cartel movie that explores the spoof, a more sinister explanation of how the media is censored via central control. This explanation does not have the problems that Goldberg's does in terms of squandering a financial resource.
Finally, graduation ceremony. Hey, I've heard rumors that big network anchors like Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, and Dan Rather will be here, and they'll be the ones that will reveal to us why they trained us in news manipulation techniques. Well, it's obvious to promote progressive policies from what we've seen, but I've heard from an old hand. There's more to it, a lot more.
So what did he say?
Well, he didn't really say. He said he was sworn to secrecy, but I would only find out if I survived the final cut.